Greetings and welcome back to the 7-minute free therapy session. My name is Seth Needing and I'm both a licensed mental health therapist as well as a licensed addiction recovery therapist, as well as being really grounded in spirituality. So as you recall from our last session, we really talked about the change process and how to get to skill-based change. Today we're going to focus on changing our thoughts. Now, if you remember from the last video, and hopefully you do, and if you don't, you can go back and look at the previous video. We talked about there is always 2 steps to change that are very important. And there's 2 principles I want to review with you today about the change process, because these are going to be fundamental, whether we're talking about how to change our thoughts, how to change our emotions, how to change our behaviors, or how to change our relationships. So the first one is that change is always a 2-step process. It's not enough to just stop thinking in a certain way and say we're going to push that down and we're going to stop doing that. Again, I think I used the example before of if I have kind of short, snippy, critical language and I want to quit doing that, and if I say to myself I'm going to stop doing that and I push that down, that will stay down for a little while, but eventually it's going to push back up. So in order to really make a long-term or more permanent change, I have to not only throw off my negative thought process, I have to put on the antidote or the antithesis of abusive language. And again, that would be exhortation or lifting people up or talking with encouraging language, mentoring language, being supportive and caring. So today, as we talk about the change process of changing our thoughts, I want to talk about how do you take your thoughts captive? How do you change the way you think? Because sometimes we're not even aware of how we think. So the second step in change is to take a look at, if I change the way I think, it's going to impact the way I feel. And if I change the way I feel, it's going to impact the way I behave, or my behavioral patterns or my habits, which is going to impact my character or my personality, which is going to impact my destiny and the journey that I go on throughout life. In mental health, we talk about it's not enough to have stop thought, we must have thought substitution. It's not enough to stop a behavior, we must have behavioral substitution. And in mental health, it can be very effective, but to a degree it falls short of a spiritual model. A spiritual model gives us, if we look biblically and look back into some of the biblical wisdom, it's amazing that some of the problems we face today were faced by people thousands and thousands of years ago. And they had some great treatment plans in the Bible on how to change. So information in and of itself, though, does not equal transformation. So I think that if we add the mental health perspective and the spiritual perspective, we can look at a greater transformation. In the area of Romans, in the New Testament, it talks about us not being conformed to the world, but being transformed by a renewal of our mind. In other words, by renewing our mind, there can be an actual transformation. And it talks about how we can put on the mind of Christ. And in the book of Philippians, it talks about thinking about the things that are good, meditating on the things that are good and worthy of praise, and the things that are honorable, and the things that are right, and the things that are pure, and the things that are beautiful, and the things that are lovely, and the things that are worthy of praise. And that we need to practice that. So that wisdom came from over 2,000 years ago. It said if we want to change our negative thinking and our automatic negative thoughts to positive thoughts, that if we meditate on and dwell on these things, that it's going to impact us. So I want to talk about a patient I saw. Her name was Jean, and she had been depressed for years before coming to see me. And she had come from a family where it was highly dysfunctional. There was alcoholism in her family. There was negativity. There was criticalness. There was chaos. There was drama. And she grew up with negativity, and she wasn't even aware of it. Her thoughts had become automatic negative thought process. And so she had a very pessimistic attitude. She didn't have much hope. And when she presented to therapy, I gave her a homework assignment, and I told her every single morning to get up 10 or 15 minutes early, and I wanted her to dwell on the chapter in Philippians about focusing on things that were positive and things that were worthy of praise and things that were honorable, and the things that she felt blessed about, the things that she had an appreciation of. She started to make a journal, a blessings inventory, an appreciation journal, a gratitude list, and she started to list some of the things that, although she had a relatively modest home with many problems in the home as far as repairs that needed to be done, she listed on the other side that it was a blessing because her parents, who are now deceased, had left her the home. She was able to focus on the fact that her home had heat and it had air conditioning. She also focused on the fact that she had clean water. She had hot water and cold water. She also was able to focus on the fact that although she had very little means, she did have a little bit of savings. So at one point she treated herself, she liked music, she treated herself to a nice audio system, and she saw that as a positive, and she was grateful for that. And although her car was not a newer car, it was an older car, but at least it was reliable. She was college educated, but she had taken some college courses that did not lead directly to a profession or a career, so she felt that she was somewhat underemployed. But the blessing in that she found was that she had developed several friendships. So each week I would have her go back and be creative and push herself to look at the positives in her life. And I remember there was a time then 4 to 8 weeks later after she had started this process, she came in and she said, "I see the world differently. My eyes have been opened." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" She had looked out her back window, and before, all she had seen was leaves that needed to be raked, lawn that needed to be mowed, weeds that needed to be pulled. And she looked out and she said, "Wow, this tree in my backyard is beautiful. And there's some flowers back there." And she said, "I now see the world totally differently." So again, to have skill-based change, she has to practice a gratitude list, an appreciation journal, a blessings inventory, and she has to do that every day. And even within 30 to 60 days, she has noticed a significant change. And I think if she goes on to do that for a year, her automatic negative thoughts are going to move towards automatic positive thoughts. So I hope that you've been working on that and coming up with what you want to change. And again, next time what we're going to talk about is the change process on how do we change our emotions. And if you'd like to go further with this at your own pace, I do have a book out on the internet that is free. You can find the book on biblicaltherapyseth.com. That's my webpage. And it's a free PDF download. And the name of the book is Biblical Therapy, Your Personal Journal. And there's a place in there for you to put in your own information, for you to do your own journaling. So feel free to go ahead and download that, and it will help you as we go further in talking about how do we change our feelings. Okay, and I want to thank you again for tuning in, and I'm wishing you positive mental health and many blessings.